What we have here is a 2010 Trek Madone 5.4 full carbon. What makes this a classic, or actually more relevant today than most bikes that are out new? Let's review after this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hi, I'm Justin the guy. Obviously, I have a garage shop. Taking scary how to use bikes one bike at a time.
If you like these videos, please like and subscribe.
Hey, welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles on another installment of This Old Bike. Yes, we're going to talk about one of these classic gems, which really, it's just classic, but not classic as a classical. It's classic like it's traditional, and yet it's very relevant to today's bikes. And actually, it blows the doors off, I would say, a majority of the new bikes, because new bikes have, not sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but they're getting to territorial parts. They're specific and getting kind of not away from the universal standards of switching out parts and so forth, which makes it super difficult to upgrade or change your bike without sticking with those parts. Fast forward from 15 years from now, those particular bikes are going to be hard to kind of fit in retro because those parts are probably not going to be around or available. So, looking at the classic, which have new parts today that actually fit for adjustment and upgrades, this is a rock solid find for sure. Let's review a couple of those things right now. Looking at the Trek Madone, a mad one I call them. It's a 4.5, which is just a model number. So when you're looking at these used, yeah, some people are kind of scared of carbon because of age. Carbon has like some misnomers out there, and let's debunk that right off the bat. It has an infinite flex cycle. It does not break down over time, and it is actually does not fracture like aluminum does over flex cycles, as well as steel, and is also repairable. Disclaimer: carbon's actually pretty sweet. If you have an aluminum frame and you get a little crack, it's toast. You get a steel frame, it has a little crack, well, you can weld it, but it's not as pretty. You get titanium, those can be fixed as well. Carbon fiber, there's some actual companies out there that can repair a carbon frame to the same match carbon that's being used when it's manufactured. In addition to, they have a paint job or a paint booth that match the actual paint. I think they're based out of England. And if you have a high-end, Cervelo or whatever, a 10-gram bike and got a crack or smashed it, crashing or whatever, you need to get fixed, they're the ones to look out for. I saw videos on this, and it's phenomenal what they do. And you would not even tell an actually repaired area of a carbon is actually stronger than the regular carbon tubing. Reason being, they build it up more to support that area. Kind of like if you break your arm and put a titanium plate in it, you know what I'm going with this. Anywho, back off the soapbox and right into the bike itself. We're looking at the Trek 2010 Madone. Madone is basically the 5200 to the 5000 models of OCLV. These are actually the newer version of the same carbon tech that was put into this bike, 14 years ago now, is still relevant to today's carbon manufacturing. As a matter of fact, more so, this actually has some bits on it, or actually tech pieces, which are more universal. I'm going to go over that in a minute. But we're going to talk about, well, there's three things in the bike, right? We want to review this, we want to review it properly. Well, number one is the frame and fork. Number two would be the componentry and the shifting and the brakes and the derailleurs. And number three is the wheel set. So all those kinds of things that mix match when they go up and down the line. So when you're looking at the rule of thumb on most bikes, when you're looking at new, anywhere between 500 to 1,000, probably a little bit more in today's standards. The frame might be the same, but may have a different parts kit or a different wheel set, so they kind of stepper it up. Looking at the Madone, you'll have like several different numbers up and down. Same kind of concept. When you breach that 1,000 to 2,000 price point, the whole bike shifts, it changes. So in other words, the frame look could be completely different componentry group set, and a higher end or lower end wheel set. So that's the kind of thing to think about, and it's been that way for, 3 decades now. So looking at the historical pieces, and when you're looking at a bike and you want to review it or check it out for yourself and what you're looking for, it's like what you're trying to find is probably a nicer frame with lower componentry, and later on down the road, you can always swap those componentry to upgrade. A lot of people do that in the new market because that price point from 3,000 to 5,000 is a pretty hard lift, but if it's the same frame, it'll go to the lower end for a little while and then upgrade later on. Well, looking at the used market, it's really opened up my mind and my eyes, actually my eyes more than my mind, actually both. Anyway, you could actually upgrade those bikes like you would today, but back then, you get in with a lot less. So those parts on the used market, if you want to upgrade to Ultegra, Dura-Ace, that kind of thing, it's a lot more readily available. Yeah, you got little bits here that might be a little more scuffed or used or whatever, but you can still get the same outcome by upgrading. Why am I saying that? This one has a 105 componentry, which is the more of a mid-range, so we'll get into that too. So let's dive into this frame and fork. So let's have a little story time about the frame and fork. So carbon fiber has been used in the cycling industry for decades now. From tubing, from lug, to what it is today, the layered system that they have in the molding and press and all that. And they had several different types of carbon out there from different variations. You can get super technical, you can get lost in the weeds really quick, but lo and behold, the Trek Specialized Giant, they have variations, and also is dictated by price. When you look at this particular bike, this bike ran new back in 2010 around about 2,100 to 2,300, depending where you're at. And what that got you is a full carbon frame and a carbon fork. Well, what's the properties of carbon? Carbon is a light material, yeah, and it also has a flex to it. So it has that titanium feel of give, but with carbon, it's a little bit lighter than titanium, and in addition to, they can layer the carbon up to make it more rigid. So where titanium sometimes got really kind of a bad poo-poo caca on it back in the day, is like it's a little kind of whippy or whatever, that kind of thing. Well, carbon fiber is able to address that and build up the areas of the frame where you have more of a give, like for comfort, then you have more rigidity, stiffness for accelerating that speed. This technology is still being used today. This is kind of like I would say, the big jump of carbon tech, because they had the tube carbons in the 90s, were kind of fun, but still kind of chunky, and they were doing some funky things with it. And then in the early 2000s, they were kind of playing with different types of stuff. And a little inside trade note is between 2000 and 2008, Trek decided to move their whole manufacturing out of the United States. Why is that? Well, what I found, for at least the carbon perspective, and I got this through the horse's mouth of one of the engineers, and basically an individual at Trek, we were building them all in the United States in 2000, up to 2006, and he was working for Trek, and he said, well, we need to look at maybe some less expensive options for carbon bikes. So they go overseas and look at Merida, which is a big, huge manufacturer in Taiwan. And he goes over there, and he sees how they're producing their carbon. His eyes opened and his jaw dropped, and realized and took all that information that what they're doing with carbon over there, and came back to Trek and goes, they're blowing the doors off of what we're doing off here. What they have in the pipeline, they did some cost analysis and all that. They would not be able to manufacture those frames here in the United States and keep the prices competitive. So that 1 week trip for that one individual turned out to be 7 to 8 years of living in Taiwan, overseeing the production of carbon fiber frames in Taiwan. That being said, the models before that, you're looking at Trek and Specialized comparison. Technically, the Specialized bikes are a little bit nicer. Just throwing it out there. After 2007, when they moved the whole enchilada over there, except for the project ones that they paint here, whatever. But for the majority of the meat and potatoes of their whole bike line, they are actually built overseas, and they have the better tech put into the actual frames than for. So the TCG, the carbon Trek carbon technology, it's just fancy words. It's the same kind of carbon. Granted, the geometries are different. So you're going to have those different ride fields and properties between both lines. That's not apples to apples whatsoever. Materials and the processes of it are pretty close. So when you're looking at this particular frame, it has that better tech put into it. In addition to, what's really nice about this frame, it has a couple tidbits that are standardized within that range. You got the threaded bottom bracket, which is, I believe, a 68 shell. So you can use any 68 shell bottom bracket threaded. So it can combine all sorts of different ones. Not a press fit bearing when they did a couple years later. Bad idea, total train wreck. This is the standard stuff. It's good. You're not going to have a problem. It's easier to get those used parts or new parts to fit into that. The seat post. You've seen some of those mass seat posts. I've sold a couple of those. You know, they're fun, whatever, but that's BS. Because you're looking at this particular standard 27.2 seat post goes into the frame. You can go get yourself all sorts of kinds of fancy seat posts if you wanted to. That's kind of cool. And last but not least, the headset. It is an integrated bearing headset, but it's standard with your standard A headset stem. Let me get this tri-junk out of the way, if I can. So this is your standard stem, and you can find a million different ones of these on, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, whatever, eBay, even new, and you can get different lengths and different angles and all sorts of different accessories for those. Well, I'm talking about the newer ones. They're all integrated. Yeah, that's nice. And you tuck all those cables and it's all sleek and air design. It's crap. It's total crap. Reason being is average riders, majority of us, that wind drag from the cable ain't going to do a damn difference to our ride or experience at all, except for when we went to go upgrade or change that stem and bar out to something more fit appropriate, then you're going to be paying an arm and a leg. This is cheap. You can get yourself a $10 stem with different angles. It's all alloy and it's about the same weight as what's on there. You can get different bars, which is the same 31.8, I think, or 31.6 bar headset, and they're easy to switch out. You look at one of the videos I've had with old standard quill that I just recently did, check that video out. Then you'll see the heartache and pain of switching those stems out. These are super easy to work on. Anybody can watch a 2-second video, okay, a minute or 2-minute video, and be able to switch out their stem and do all those things appropriately, easily. Standard, standard, standard. Yeah, it doesn't have the disc brakes, it doesn't have the through axles, but at the end of the day, the disc brakes for a road bike, in my opinion, and I'm going to have a lot of haters on this, like, I want disc brakes or whatever on road bikes, that's fine, you can throw those comments below. But the disc brakes themselves, if they're, let's say, cable actuated, junk for road, it has to be hydraulic. Reason being is you want to have the control of those pistons at higher speeds. It's one of those things like you want to not stop and go. You want to have those adjustments. Reason being is you're bombing down a hill going 45 miles per hour. You want to have those speed adjustments. That's the only benefit, really. You can still slow down with these guys and stop just fine. They're lighter weight. They're easy to work on. Do I need to say more? The other benefit of disc brakes, though, is tire clearances. You definitely get wider. So if you're looking at a gravel bike and that kind of thing, yes, there's a home for that. If you're looking for a traditional road bike and the widest tire you're going to put on there is a 25C, this is going to do you all day long, just fine. Because the disc brakes, you're adding weight, unless you want to pay it for the upfront. And also, there's a maintenance thing to it. You got to take to a guy like me to bleed them. And if you have any issues, it can be costly. But these guys, pretty straightforward, simple, and easy out of the gate. So you got standard, 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 standard. Beautiful bike. You can't do much better than that. And that way, even though you have something that might be funky or weird or you want to upgrade, you can easily without too many complications. Let's talk about componentry. Cue circus music. So when you're looking at a used bike, you want to run through all the gears and all that. Yeah, there can be a lot of things that go wrong with them. But at the end of the day, these parts are a lot less expensive than the frame of fork and the wheels. So if you need a stretch chain, which this one is, needs to be replaced, okay, $20. Cassette, maybe 30 to 40. Need a new rear derailleur? You want to do vintage up? You can find these guys for like 30 or 40 bucks. They've been refurbished. Look at my website. Same thing for the front derailleur and you also the crankset. So the componentry goes, this is 105 mix, which is their mid-range. Shimano has Dura-Ace, Ultegra, then 105, still today. And basically they call the 105 the working man's componentry. It's supposed to be less expensive, but still has all the high-end tech qualities. Actually, 105 works wonderful because 105 has all the trickle-down tech from the Dura-Ace to Ultegra and all the bugs without all the bugs. All the bugs happen during Dura-Ace and Ultegra. When they get it down to 105, it is rock solid. It shifts good. They've taken all the issues out of it. And then, you can't ask for more. If you're going to upgrade this, I'd suggest going to Ultegra. Dura-Ace, it's fun, it's nice, and it's light, and it's, kind of elitist. You don't need it. No, not for average riding. Absolutely not. Ultegra is actually going to do you better. It's going to be easier to replace, to maintenance, and at the end of the day, it's just going to work better for you. And honestly, I don't need more efficiency. I just need to get out there and ride. Okay, another thing I want to talk about. So we got the drivetrain and the shifting and so forth, but you got the brakes. It's a whole other kind of question and animal out there. This one has Tiagra brakes, and you'll see some that have Tektro or some other brands. And when you're looking at these particular caliper style brakes, they all work really well. Even the no-name Anakas. On this particular one, if I was going to do any upgrades, if the brake pads were worn out, I would switch them out with the cartridge style. It's just easier to switch those out. Performance factor is really about the same. It's just easier to switch out those pads without having to monkey with all the spacing and so forth. Other than that, the difference between Ultegra and 105 and Tiagra here, which is actually the fourth level down, they did a mix, kind of tricky, but they'll do higher end and lower end on the brakes and whatever. But anywho, these are actually pretty good. If that bugs the heck out of you, all right, look for a pair of front and rear 105 brake calipers. Guarantee they're going to be like 30 or 40 bucks. Not expensive. And even if you want to pony up and get the Ultegra ones out there, probably around 10 bucks more than that. They're all over the place and they're clean. A lot of them are cleaned up and ready to go. Just make sure they have all the bits on them and they're not too scarred up. These things really don't get damaged, really, because they're up here. They're not down in the way of getting bumped and whatever. So realistically, these will hold up really well unless it's all rusted out. Obviously, you want to look for that. But, for the replacement, you can get yourself a $40 lift, new to you used brake calipers, and they're going to be just fine. And they work with other kinds of shifters. You don't have to be 105, 105, 105. It can be like 105 shifters. Those are more expensive. They work just as good as Ultegra. You're probably not going to know this difference. Then you have like upgrade maybe the rear derailleur for more efficiency, a little bit lighter weight. Then the brakes are kind of like, I just want a little bit nicer brake. But all in that, they say they use the same cable, pivot, and all that. So it's nothing to be scared of. I spin you right round, round, baby, right round like a record right now. I'm probably going to get a strike on that, but whatever. Back in the old Dead or Alive days and 80s music, let's talk about wheels and how they spin and where are they the third part of the bike you want to look into. Wheels. Well, these come with the SSRs from Bontrager. Not sure what SSR means. But these are the ones that are out of the paired spoke systems. It's one of those funny tech things over the ages. When you get old like me, you see things like Biopace, the oval chain rings. Ooh, we got this cool thing. It's called Biopace. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll buy into that. It's supposed to take out the dead spot in your pedal. Oh, well, we did 2 Biopace, so they're 2 round, oval, so they're like less oval, that's Biopace 2. And hey, guess what? A couple years later, we're like, hey, we got the round chain ring. You see where I'm going with this. So they did with the paired spoke systems. Everybody followed suit. They realized they didn't really do too much for you, really. And then went back to the radial lace spokes. And, these have, I think, less, more spacing. They're not a 32. It's like a 28 or whatever. But what it comes down to is they beefed up the rims. They did a little higher tension on these. These particular ones they did some learnings because the paired spoke, they went too light. In other words, took too much material away and they developed stress cracks. These are actually pretty solid. The SSRs, I haven't had any of those been faulty. They're kind of like the workhorse of wheel sets. They're decent. Are they light? No, but they work well. You can always buy into the lighter ones, but when more you spend for lighter wheels, the more chances of them breaking or cracking on you. This is how it is. Anyway, so if you want a good solid wheel to ride, yes, if you're going to look into a bike and do an upgrade, the wheels are definitely something to look into because it's this reason, the rotational weight. Rotational weight, once that is reduced, That actually makes the bike perform a little bit better. You go a little bit faster. That's the best weight loss on a bike is the wheel set. That's where you'd start versus gram weaning, taking titanium bolts or whatever. This is the way to go. Reason being is for those things. And you get nicer wheels, carbon wheels, and all that kind of thing. And it just, makes it lighter, lighter, lighter. But if you're in an area where you get a lot of flats, you're going to be having it back up with heavier, thicker tires. So where's the balance? But anyway, when you're looking at a new bike, like this particular one is in the mid-range of componentry, it has mid-range wheels, which are solid, they're workhorses, they work well. They have not had very many warranties to them or recalls, that kind of thing. Even in today's wheel world, they do have issues, like they take bad batches and some crack and so forth. I had a customer that I was doing tune-up on his bike. Yeah, it was a newer bike. It was like 2 years old. Tune the wheels and boom, they're hair enough. There was a hairline crack coming from one of the spoke nipples. So yeah, it happens even to today's wheels. So this guy had some use, obviously, but it's actually a pretty decent bike, carbon frame, it's going to hold up. And the second expensive lift would be the wheels if these were damaged, but not nearly as much as the frame and fork. A wheel set used, you can find them between 100 to 200 bucks. If you find, you can find some nicer ones out there even for 500 to 600, maybe even some carbons, that kind of deal. But if you do the full carbon rim without a metal rim brake, you'll have to switch those brake pads out to the carbon specific brake pads for carbon rims. Just a heads up on that. But anywho, a lot of these cassette bodies will match. So, if it's 11 speed, you should be able to, with a spacer, be able to use a 10 speed. This is a 10 speed system. Solid stuff, works well. The only difference between a 10 and 11 speed is they add a little gear in the back. That just makes it a smoother transition. This also has a triple front, which I'm a proponent of triple chain rings up front. Reason being, that has that climbing gear. I'm in Colorado, and we have these hills called mountains, and it's a pain in the keister trying to get up that hill if you don't have that granny gear. You're walking. It's better just to drop down and spin, and you're really not losing that much weight. They do kind of combat the weight thing and the shifting efficiency and all that in the front derailleur, but I think that is just a whole bunch of malarkey because they're just trying to simplify it, and it costs less to make those. So, because, you have to have two models of bikes, a double and a triple. Well, they're trying to make one to fit, square peg in a round hole, one of those deals. So the triple is an awesome thing for climbing. And yeah, you can convert them, but it gets kind of expensive because you have to switch out the crank set, the front derailleur, the rear derailleur, the bottom bracket, what else? The chain, maybe the cassette. And most of the times you do have to switch out the shifters. Unless it's the 9-speed shifters like the Ultegra 105 and Ultegra 9-speed, the shifters themselves, this is where they were smart, they made a double, triple left shifter for both. And you only had one shifter. But anywho, get off my soapbox on that, back to the wheels. Wheels, they're fun because back in the day, we would custom build wheels. We'd buy some fancy Chris King hubs or Dura-Ace hubs. Use Will Smith spokes, double putted or triple butted spokes with alloy nipples, and lace them up with the Mavic Open Pro rims. We did hundreds of those. And I remember my dad, he'd be in the kitchen at night, right after dinner, he'd be lacing stuff up, just watching TV. That was our thing back in the 90s, was custom lace wheels. Well, custom lacing has lost its art and its form. It's more of a unique niche. And there's some shops out there that still do it, but at the end of the day, out of the box wheels are probably the way to go, especially for carbons and so forth. If you're looking for new and used, you can find some of those out there too. But anywho, wheels is something that it's awesome. It is a third of your bike. It's pretty important, but if you're going to lose some weight on it, start with the wheels. Let's recap. So there we have it, the Trek 2010 Madone, made overseas. That's not a bad thing, but the majority of the componentry is made overseas anyway, and the wheels, they pretty much are as well. So when you're looking at a USA-made bike, it's not the bike, it's just the frame. Most likely the fork was made somewhere else too. So let's just take that all out of the equation. You basically want whoever builds the best frame, whoever builds the best componentry, and whoever builds the best wheels, that's what you want. This is what you got. This is a pretty decent one, very competitive in the time, and very competitive to today's standards, very adjustable and so forth. Yeah, I'm going to be diving into this bad boy here and giving it my magic, stripping it down, ultrasonic all the parts, replacing needs to be replaced, probably some new tires or what have you, bar tape, and get all this weird mucky muck stuff off from. It was a triathlon. They have their own little niche things with the aero bars. Those are going to come off and back. These seats are specifically for triathlons. It's just weird. I don't understand where the junk goes. But anywho, that's just me. I'm a more traditionalist saddle. I want something to sit on, not to feel like something's missing. Anywho, that's what we got, the carbon frame. You know, same tech that's being used on a lot of the bikes today. Yeah, there might be a little bit aerodynamic, a little bit more, a little lighter, but quite honestly, these bikes are coming in at 17 to 20 pounds, right? To get anything lower than that, new, you better take your shoes off because I can't count that high because you're talking about $8,000 to $10,000, which if you're watching this, most likely you don't want to spend that, even if you can't afford it. It's just kind of ridiculous. Cycling is supposed to be fun. Not all of us own Lamborghinis, so that's how I put it in perspective. Hope you enjoyed this review of the Trek Madone. Also, a fun little fact, this was actually sold at Bicycle Village. Bicycle Village is a chain store in the Denver metro area in Colorado. In the 90s, they had somewhere about 14 or 15 stores, one of the bigger Trek dealers at the time. And fast forward today, they're owned by Vel Sports. That's shrunk down the footprint to about like maybe 4 stores now. Vel Sports is global. You probably have a resort near you or a sporting goods thing that they own near you. They have like this lifetime free tune-ups. That's what I always laugh. Lifetime free tune-ups on the sticker. Guess when you can get that lifetime free tune-up? January. No other time of the year. And it's supposed to be transferable to the second owner. I don't even trust that. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with the garage. If it's nice in your neck of the woods, go out there. Hey, if you like these t-shirts, smash a button below. Thanks again. Have a great day.